My name is Jordan Blake. I'm 31 years old. And 7 days ago, my boss fired me in front of 3 witnesses for telling the truth. He called me insubordinate, disloyal, a problem employee who didn't understand how business really worked. He had security escort me out while my coworkers watched from their cubicles, faces frozen in second-hand embarrassment. What Victor Harlan didn't know was that firing me wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of his worst nightmare. Because exactly 1 week later, his phone would ring with a call from Northbridge Solutions compliance office, and the voice on the other end would be mine. Before I tell you exactly what I said when he finally recognized who was speaking, tell me in the comments, what time is it where you are right now, and have you ever been punished for doing the right thing? Victor's glass office always made me uncomfortable. The walls were transparent, but nothing inside ever was. He sat behind his mahogany desk, fingers steepled, smiling like a principal about to deliver bad news gently. "Jordan," he said, "I need to ask you about the quarterly report." I'd been expecting this. The numbers didn't add up. Revenue projections were inflated by nearly 18%. Expenses had been reclassified to hide cost overruns. I'd flagged it twice in emails. "The figures were adjusted," I said carefully. Victor's smile tightened. "Adjusted how?" I took a breath. "Manipulated. To impress the investor group." The smile vanished completely. His jaw set. For 10 seconds, he just stared at me. Then he stood, walked to the door, and called HR. That's when I knew. Honesty wasn't going to save me. It was going to bury me. 20 minutes later, I sat in a conference room with Victor, 2 junior managers I barely knew, and Patricia from HR. Victor didn't waste time. "Jordan has demonstrated a fundamental misunderstanding of our business model," he announced, voice cold and formal. "He's accused leadership of unethical practices without evidence and created a hostile environment with baseless claims." I opened my mouth to respond. Patricia held up a hand. "Your access has been revoked," she said quietly. "Please return your badge and laptop immediately." The 2 managers wouldn't meet my eyes. Victor watched me like I was a stain being removed. I stood slowly, my face burning. Coworkers stared as I walked back to my desk. Some looked sympathetic. Most looked away. I packed my things into a cardboard box while security stood 3 feet behind me. The shame was suffocating. But underneath it, something else burned. Clarity. The parking lot was empty and silent. I sat in my car, hands shaking, staring at the building I'd given 3 years of my life to. Victor hadn't just fired me. He'd scapegoated me to protect himself. I opened my phone and scrolled through my email. Threads I'd been copied on for months. Budget revisions. Investor decks. Internal memos with phrases like "smooth the optics" and "adjust the narrative." I'd never thought to save them before. I did now. One by one, I forwarded emails to my personal account. Spreadsheets. Audit trails. Communication logs. Not to get revenge. Not yet. Just to have proof. Proof that I wasn't crazy. Proof that the numbers Victor presented to the board weren't the numbers his own team reported. By the time I drove home, my inbox was a minefield. And Victor had no idea it existed. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, coffee going cold beside me, and I rebuilt the story Victor had tried to erase. Every email. Every edited spreadsheet. Every revised projection. I created a timeline showing when the real numbers were reported and when they were changed. I highlighted who made the changes. Victor's name appeared again and again. I didn't post anything online. I didn't send angry messages. I just organized. By sunrise, I had a folder labeled Evidence with 23 documents inside. My phone buzzed. A text from my former coworker, Ben. "What happened? People are saying you got fired for ethics violations." I stared at the message. Ethics violations. Victor was already rewriting the story. I didn't reply. Silence, I realized, could be a weapon too. Let Victor think I'd disappeared quietly. Let him think he'd won. By Monday morning, I had 3 missed calls and 5 texts from people at the company. Everyone wanted to know what really happened. One message stood out. It was from Vanessa, a data analyst I'd worked with on audits. "Jordan, I know what you saw. I saw it too. Be careful. I didn't respond to any of them. Not because I didn't trust them, but because I didn't want to put them in Victor's crosshairs. The less I said, the safer they were. The less I said, the more power I kept. I spent the day updating my resume and applying to jobs I was overqualified for. I told myself this was temporary, that I'd land somewhere eventually, that honesty would matter somewhere. I almost believed it. Then my phone buzzed with an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "Confidential inquiry, are you open to a conversation?" The sender was a recruiter from Northbridge Solutions. My heart stopped. Northbridge was our biggest competitor. The email was short and professional. "Mr. Blake, your name came up during a routine compliance review. We're impressed by your background and would like to discuss an opportunity. Are you available this week?" I read it 3 times. A compliance review. That meant Northbridge had been looking into companies in the industry, possibly including Victor's. And somehow my name had surfaced. I replied within an hour. "I'm available. Thank you for reaching out." The response came back in minutes. "Excellent. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Our downtown office. Ask for Elena Park, see." I sat back, stunned. Not HR. Not a hiring manager. The chief operating officer of a multimillion-dollar logistics firm wanted to meet me personally. I didn't let myself hope. Not yet. But I did print out a sanitized version of my evidence folder. Just in case they asked the right questions. Because if they did, I was ready to answer. Honestly, Northbridge's office was sleek, modern, and intimidating. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. The receptionist led me to a glass-walled conference room where a woman in a tailored blazer waited. "Jordan Blake," she said, standing to shake my hand. "I'm Elena Park. Thank you for coming." Her grip was firm. Her eyes were sharp. We sat, and she didn't waste time. "We're exploring a potential partnership in the logistics sector," she said. "Your former employer is on our list. During preliminary research, your name appeared in several internal audits. Favorably." I nodded carefully. I worked in operations and compliance oversight. Elena leaned forward slightly. "We heard you left recently. Can I ask why?" I met her gaze. "I was fired for raising concerns about financial reporting accuracy." Her expression didn't change. "What kind of concerns?" I paused. Then I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. "The kind I can prove," I said. Elena's eyes flickered with interest. She opened the folder and read in silence. I'd sanitized the documents carefully. No internal emails. No company letterhead. Just data. Charts showing projected revenue versus actual revenue. Expense categories that shifted between reports. Dates that didn't align. Patterns that screamed manipulation. Elena studied each page without speaking. Finally, she looked up. "You flagged this internally?" she asked. "Twice," I said. "In writing. And they fired you. For being too honest." Their words, not mine. Elena closed the folder and slid it back across the table. Her face was unreadable. "Mr. Blake, I appreciate your transparency. We'll be in touch." That was it. No promises. No follow-up questions. Just a polite dismissal. I left the building feeling like I just played my only card and lost. But 3 hours later, my phone rang. It was Elena. "We'd like to make you an offer," she said. "Can you come back tomorrow?" My hands were shaking when I hung up. This time, not from fear. From hope. While I was meeting with Northbridge, Victor was busy spinning his own version of events. I heard about it from Ben, who texted me that afternoon. Victor held a team meeting. Said you were let go for ethical concerns. That you tried to sabotage the quarterly review. Ethical concerns. The irony was almost funny. Victor was accusing me of the exact thing he was guilty of, and people were believing him. Because that's how it works. The person with the title gets to write the story. I sat on my couch, staring at Ben's message, and felt something harden inside me. Victor wanted to make me the villain. Fine. Let him. Because the truth doesn't need defending. It just needs time. And I was about to have all the time I needed. That night, I replied to Ben with just 2 words. "Thanks." Noted. Then I blocked his number. Not out of anger. Out of focus. I couldn't afford distractions. Not now. Not when I was this close. The next morning, I sat across from Elena again. This time, a contract sat between us. Director of Internal Audits and Operational Integrity, she said, sliding the paper toward me. You'll oversee compliance reviews, identify risk, and ensure our operations meet regulatory and ethical standards. I scanned the offer. The salary was 30% higher than my old job. The benefits were better. The title had real authority. But one clause caught my eye. It was buried in the third page. Authority to initiate third-party audits across partner organizations and acquisition targets during due diligence processes. I looked up. This means I'd be auditing companies you're considering partnerships with? Elena's smile was small but sharp. Exactly. I understood immediately. If Northbridge ever looked at Victor's company again, I'd be the one reviewing their books. I signed without hesitation. When do I start? I asked. Elena extended her hand. Monday. I shook it, and for the first time in 2 weeks, I smiled. Not out of relief. Out of certainty. Victor had no idea what was coming. I started at Northbridge quietly. No LinkedIn post. No announcement. Just showed up Monday morning, met my team, and got to work. The first week was a blur of onboarding, system access, and learning internal processes. I kept my head down and focused on earning trust. I reviewed expense reports. Identified inefficiencies in vendor contracts. Flagged outdated compliance protocols. Small stuff. Foundational work. But I did it well. By the end of the second week, Elena stopped by my office. You're faster than I expected, she said. Good instincts. Thank you. She leaned against the doorframe. We're reviewing a potential partnership. Logistics firm. Mid-sized. I'll need you to lead the financial audit. My pulse quickened. When? Soon, she said. I'll send the details tomorrow. She left, and I sat back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. It could be anyone. There were dozens of logistics firms in the region. But deep down I knew exactly which company it would be. I spent the next 2 weeks building credibility. I fixed problems. I asked good questions. I made people's jobs easier instead of harder. My team started trusting me. Leadership noticed. I wasn't flashy. I was effective. And in a compliance role, that mattered more. One afternoon, I overheard 2 senior managers talking in the break room. Harlan's company is pitching us hard, one said. Victor's positioning himself as a visionary. Claims they've got the infrastructure to double our capacity. The other laughed. Yeah, well, we'll see what the audit says. I didn't react. I poured my coffee and walked back to my desk. My hands didn't shake. My breath stayed steady. But my mind was already moving. Victor was coming. And he had no idea I was waiting. That night, I went home and pulled up the folder I'd built 2 weeks ago. I updated it, cross-referenced it, made sure every date, every number, every detail was airtight. Then I saved it. And I waited. The official email came on a Thursday. Partnership Review, Harlan Logistics Group. Lead Auditor, Jordan Blake. Kickoff meeting Monday at 9 a.m. I read the name 3 times. Harlan Logistics Group. Victor's company. Elena had assigned me personally. I didn't know if she knew the connection. Maybe she did. Maybe this was a test. Either way, I wasn't going to waste it. I prepared over the weekend. I reviewed every document Northbridge had on file. Financial statements. Operational reports. Partnership proposals. And then I cross-referenced them with the evidence I already had. The patterns were worse now. Revenue inflation had grown. Expenses were buried deeper. What Victor hid before had metastasized. I documented everything carefully. No emotion. No bias. Just facts. By Sunday night, I had a file that could end Victor's career. But I wasn't going to use it yet. Not until the process demanded it. Not until there was no way out. Monday morning, Elena opened the meeting with 4 senior leaders present. This partnership represents significant growth potential, she said. But we need full transparency. Jordan, you'll lead the financial review. If anything raises concerns, flag it immediately. I nodded. Understood. She slid a thumb drive across the table. These are the files Harlan's team provided. Start there. I took the drive and returned to my office. My hands were steady as I plugged it in. The folder opened. And there it was. The same manipulated data. The same reclassified expenses. The same inflated projections. But now it wasn't just internal. It was being presented to a potential partner. That changed everything. I opened a new report template and began documenting discrepancies. Line by line. Document by document. I worked through lunch. Through dinner. By midnight, I had a 20-page audit summary. It was calm. Professional. Devastating. And it was the truth. The next morning, I submitted it to Elena. She read it in silence. Then she looked at me. You're certain? She asked. Completely, I said. She nodded once. We'll proceed with a formal compliance review. Northbridge triggered the compliance review 2 days later. A formal letter was sent to Victor's company requesting additional documentation and clarification on financial discrepancies. I wasn't part of the communication. I stayed in the background. But I knew Victor would receive it. I knew he'd panic. I imagined him in his glass office, reading the letter, his face going pale. I imagined him calling his finance team, demanding answers. I imagined him scrambling to cover tracks that were already exposed. That afternoon, Ben texted me from a new number. Something big is happening. Victor's freaking out. Keeps asking for reports from 2 years ago. Do you know anything? I stared at the message for a long time. Then I deleted it without responding. I couldn't afford to be connected. Not yet. Not until this was over. That night, I went home and didn't think about Victor at all. I cooked dinner. Watched a movie. Slept soundly. Because for the first time in weeks, I wasn't the one losing sleep. Victor was. The compliance review moved forward. Northbridge requested meetings. Document submissions. Interviews with key staff. Victor's team scrambled. I watched from a distance as emails flew back and forth. Deadlines were missed. Revisions were submitted. The paper trail got messy. And messier trails are easier to follow. Elena asked me to sit in on a video call with Victor's CFO. I joined with my camera off, listed only as compliance team. The CFO was nervous. He stumbled through explanations. Couldn't account for discrepancies. Blamed software errors and reporting lag. Elena thanked him politely and ended the call. Then she turned to me. Your assessment? He's lying, I said. And he knows we know. Elena's expression was unreadable. Prepare a formal recommendation. I'll present it to the board Friday. I spent the next 2 days writing the most important document of my career. It was clear, factual, unavoidable, and it recommended Northbridge walk away. When I submitted it, Elena read it twice. Then she scheduled a call with Victor. Personally, Victor's phone rang at exactly 10 a.m. on Friday. I wasn't supposed to be on the call. But Elena had asked me to stay in the room, camera and mic off. Just listen, she'd said. Victor answered on the second ring. His voice was confident. Too confident. Elena, good to hear from you. I trust we're moving forward. Elena's tone was professional but cool. Victor, we've completed our compliance review. There are concerns. The pause. Concerns. Significant discrepancies in your financial reporting. Revenue projections that don't match actuals. Expense categories that shift between reports. Victor's voice hardened. That's a misunderstanding. Our team can clarify. We've asked for clarification, Elena interrupted. Multiple times. The answers don't align. Silence stretched. I could almost hear Victor's mind racing. I'd like to speak with your auditor directly, he said. Elena glanced at me. I nodded. She unmuted my line. You can, she said. He's been on the call the entire time. Victor said nothing. I leaned forward. Hello, Victor. The silence that followed was the longest 5 seconds of my life. I heard Victor's breath catch. Heard the faint creak of his chair as he sat forward. Jordan. His voice was barely a whisper. Yes, I said calmly. I'm the Director of Internal Audits and Operational Integrity here at Northbridge. I've been leading the compliance review on your company. Another pause. Longer this time. He stopped. Started again. You're working for Northbridge? I am. My voice was steady, professional, and in that capacity, I've reviewed the financial documents your team submitted. I have some questions. I let the weight of that statement settle. Victor said nothing. Elena spoke next. Victor, we'll send a formal list of concerns by end of day. You'll have 72 hours to respond. Wait, Victor's voice cracked slightly. This is professional, I finished. This is a professional review. Nothing more. I paused. Unless there's something you'd like to clarify now? Silence. Then quietly, no. Good, Elena said. We'll be in touch. She ended the call. I sat back exhaling slowly. It was done. Victor knew. And there was nothing he could do. Within 48 hours, Northbridge sent a detailed letter outlining every discrepancy, every inconsistency, every question that Victor's team had failed to answer. Victor's company responded with a frantic, disorganized defense. New spreadsheets, revised statements, explanations that contradicted previous explanations. It was desperation in document form. Elena forwarded it all to me. Your take? She asked. I read through it carefully. Then I replied with one line, they're making it worse. She called me into her office that afternoon. The board met this morning, she said. We're pulling out of the partnership. I nodded. I didn't smile. Didn't celebrate. Just acknowledged it. Victor's board has been notified, Elena continued. They're launching an internal investigation. My chest tightened. An investigation? Into financial reporting practices. They want to know if this was isolated or systemic. She paused. Victor's been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome. I sat back. Administrative leave. That meant Victor was out. Not fired yet, but sidelined. Stripped of authority. Waiting for the axe to fall. Thank you for telling me, I said quietly. Elena studied me. You did good work, Jordan. Honest. Exactly what we needed. I met her eyes. I just told the truth. She smiled faintly. I know. 2 days later, my personal email pinged with a message from an address I recognized immediately. Victor's. The subject line was blank. The message was 3 sentences long. Jordan, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'd like to talk. Please call me. I read it twice. Then I forwarded it to Northbridge's legal department with a brief note. Received unsolicited contact from subject of compliance review. Logging for record. Legal replied within the hour. Do not respond. We'll handle it. I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. Victor was unraveling, and he wanted me to be the one to catch him. But I wasn't going to. I'd already done my part. The rest was up to him. That night, I deleted the email and went to bed early. I didn't dream about Victor. I didn't think about him at all. He was no longer my problem. He was his own. 3 days later, the industry news hit. Victor Harlan resigns from Harlan Logistics Group amid internal review. No press release. No farewell statement. Just a quiet exit buried in a 2-paragraph announcement on the company website. I read it during a meeting. Didn't react. Just noted it and moved on. After the meeting, Elena stopped by my desk. You saw? She asked. I did. She nodded. His board didn't give him a choice. The investigation found enough to recommend termination. He resigned to avoid it. Does that mean it's over? I asked. For us, yes, she said. For him? That depends on what regulators decide to do. She paused. You okay? I thought about it. Honestly thought about it. Yeah, I said. I am. And I meant it. I didn't destroy Victor. I didn't set out to ruin him. I just refused to let him bury the truth. Victor destroyed himself. I was just the one who stopped covering for him. The following week, I received an email from Elena with the subject line, New Role Discussion. She wanted to meet. We sat in her office overlooking the city, and she slid a folder across the desk. We're launching a new division, she said. Corporate ethics and transparency. It'll oversee compliance, auditing, and internal accountability across all departments. I opened the folder. Inside was a job description. Director of Corporate Ethics. My name was already printed at the top. We want you to lead it, Elena said. I looked up, stunned. This is a promotion, she finished. You've earned it. I scanned the responsibilities. Broader authority. Bigger team. Real influence. I don't know what to say. Elena smiled. Say yes. I did. That afternoon, I moved into a corner office with windows overlooking the same skyline Victor used to see from his glass walls. But the view felt different now. Clearer. Cleaner. Honest. I didn't gloat. Didn't brag. Just sat down and got to work. Because that's what I'd always done. And it finally mattered. A month later, my phone buzzed with a news alert. Former logistics executive under federal investigation for financial misconduct. The article didn't name Victor directly. But it didn't have to. I read the first paragraph, then closed it. I didn't need to know more. Victor's choices had caught up with him. Not because I reported him to regulators. I hadn't. But because when you manipulate numbers long enough, eventually someone notices. Eventually, the truth comes out. And when it does, there's no one left to scapegoat. I thought about texting Ben. Thought about reaching out to old coworkers. But I didn't. That chapter was closed. I had new colleagues now. A new team. A new mission. And for the first time in my career, I wasn't just doing the right thing. I was being rewarded for it. People ask me if I regret how it played out. If I wish I'd handled it differently. The answer is no. I didn't set out to destroy Victor. I set out to protect the truth. If Victor had owned his mistakes, apologized, corrected course, maybe things would have ended differently. But he didn't. He doubled down. He scapegoated me. He lied to his team, his board, his partners. And when the walls started closing in, he tried to pull me back in to save him. I refused. Not out of spite. Out of self-respect. Because I finally understood something my younger self didn't. You can't sacrifice your integrity to protect someone else's reputation. Not even your boss's. Especially not your boss's. The day I got fired, I thought my career was over. Turns out it was just beginning. And the person who ended it gave me exactly what I needed to rebuild it. Stronger. Cleaner. On my own terms. I'm sitting in my office now. Northbridge Solutions, 14th floor. My name is on the door. My team is 3 desks down, working on a compliance audit for a new acquisition target. My phone is on silent. My coffee is still warm. Outside, the city stretches wide and endless under a blue sky. On my desk is a framed quote I bought last week. Integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is watching. Victor taught me that lesson. Not through his words. Through his absence of them. He thought firing me would bury the problem. Instead, it freed me to become the solution. So if you're reading this and you've ever been told you're too honest, too rigid, too unwilling to bend the rules, let me tell you something, don't change. The world needs people who won't look away. And eventually, the right people will notice. They'll value what others overlooked. And when they do, you won't just survive. You'll thrive. Victor called me too honest like it was a weakness. Turns out, it was the strongest thing about me. And now I get to use it every single day. Honestly. Fearlessly. Finally free.